Au micro 5.
Bonjour. Since I'm bilingual, I'll ask my question in English and everyone will be translated. I have 3 questions, Mrs. Bloomingdale. How can you explain that you've gone back
Votre
to 19...
identification, s'il vous plaît.
En anglais ou en français?
Pareil.
C'est Joanne Poulain, je suis conseillère syndicale à la FIC. J'ai 3 questions pour Mme Bloomingdale. How can you explain that you've gone from being a little more democratic to Republicans at the same level as 1928 or 1929? That's when the setting was. If it's an easy question to answer. And what does the GAB stand for? And what about the other states surrounding you as far as support? You didn't say anything, but I'm sure you have support from other organizations around Wisconsin. Thank you.
Well, I'll start with the easy one first. The GAB, I'm sorry, is the Government Accountability Board. And that is the board that determines elections, certifies elections in the Wisconsin. And it's a nonpartisan board. And they have certified the elections against all of the Republicans, but there are problems with the certification of the 3 Democrats because of those faulty signatures and so forth. You ask about why have we gone from, why have we had this huge swing and why do the Republicans take over in the U.S.? And that's in my opinion, I believe it's that that people were, economically in trouble. People have been hurting. People's homes have been foreclosed. People are out of work. They're unemployed, and people are scared. And I believe that we had not done enough to be protesting the failed economic policies of the U.S. and that people registered their anger and frustration at the ballot box. And our job is to do, I believe, a better job of having a better outlet for people to express their anger that can actually move in a place where we can achieve a fairer and more just economy. Thanks.
Merci. Au micro 6.
Régine Laurent, exécutif FIC. Merci beaucoup, Mrs. Bloomingdale. Je sais que votre agenda est très, très, très chargé et que vous avez fait des miracles pour tenir parole et être avec nous cet après-midi. Merci beaucoup. J'avais une question. Comment, ça a été quoi le traitement médiatique de votre lutte? Comment est-ce que les médias et dans quel sens ils ont tenté d'influencer la population? Merci.
Thank you, President Régine Laurent. And again, I want to thank you for inviting me to be here with you all today. President Régine asks about the media struggle. And I mean, maybe you could tell me more because you were watching more of it from afar. But I believe that one of the early indicators was the MSNBC was there, and the Ed Schultz show, if any of you have watched that, and that's national programming, and he basically set up camp there and had a very good spin on everything that was taking place. I believe that the media coverage was on the whole good because they couldn't ignore us. They couldn't ignore the families that were coming out to protest. They tried to, say, oh, it's just a bunch of anarchists over here or young people that, don't have anything else to do. But they couldn't really get that story through, though they tried, especially on Fox Media. But and you've seen the pictures of the moms and the dads and the grandparents coming with their children to these protests to say, you know what, we're not going to allow this to stand. This is our country. This is our history. If we don't take action now, then when will we? And so the media overall, definitely publicized our struggle. Now, Is it what we would like it to be? Well, no, it's not, and it's difficult because you know, there's been not enough media after the huge protests that we've had. So we'd like to, you know, like everywhere, it's difficult to break through. But we've had very good coverage of our Walkerville in the last couple of days. CNN is there again, and it's been in the New York Times, on the Huffington Post. But really, I think that the big success in terms of communication has been through social media, has been through Facebook and Twitter and email and people talking to each other. In Wisconsin, there's not a person that you can meet who does not have an opinion on this struggle. And that is because people are talking to each other. So thank you.
Merci. Au micro 5.
Karine Paiement, membre du C3S d'Arval-la-Chine-la-Salle. I'll try to speak in English so maybe you'll need it, maybe not. Okay. So first, thank you to have taken the time to come and tell us your story. It's hard to believe that part of your Congress have voted that bill when all the world knows how bad is your economy, our economy. When homes are being foreclosed and people lose their jobs, so it's really hard to believe. We heard in the paper here, but not as well as you explained right now. It's always here, there's always right-wing people also, and journalists, they write always like a bus. So how can we help your organization and people of Wisconsin to make sure that democracy will stand? I heard about a petition in your allocution. It is open to U.S. residents only, or can we sign it too?
Merci bien. Exactly. I mean, our struggle is the struggle for working people, not only in Wisconsin or the U.S., but indeed our entire world. And so, you know, these sentiments of solidarity are so important, and it is what makes our union movement strong. In terms of what you can do, well, first of all, you can get your tent and come on down to Walkerville. I'll even reserve a tent for you. I've got lots of them. But, you know, you can also sign the petition. Absolutely, you can sign the petition. And your financial support has been very, very helpful. As you know, all of these things, unfortunately, cost a lot of money, and your financial support has been greatly appreciated. But I think the biggest thing that you can do, the most important thing that you can do, is to fight each and every one of your fights with all of your might. Because some of the same things are occurring here, and it's up to you to make sure that you don't let the small things even slide. Because as they, you know, one piece of privatization here and there and the next, and finally you wake up to see that, you know, your complete public infrastructure has been decimated. So that's what I think.
Merci. Au micro 6.
Hi, Stephanie. I'm Michelle Boisclair from the executive. We have a lot of new people here in this Congress. Would you remind them what are the facts that you got in this bill that is anti-democratic and that wants to destroy unions? I think it's important that they understand that what is going in your state is going to other states. I think Georgia, Ohio, Florida has been facing the same kind of battle. And what are the major points that is proving to us that we have to stand together in solidarity, and that this might be our next step with Harper?
Thank you, Michelle. And Michelle, it's been a pleasure to be able to have the honor to hang out with you, and it's been a lot of fun. Yes, this is an agenda that's not just Wisconsin. We knew early on that their goal would be to divide public sector from private sector workers. And they've been working on this for a long time, with putting out white papers from their think tanks to placing stories in the media, beating up on on public workers. And so when, after the election of last November, really it was their time to unleash these bills across the country. And so you'll see these same similar types of bills happening in New Jersey and Ohio and Indiana and Florida and Michigan, all across the country. But it was in Wisconsin where people stood up and fought back. And our fight, we believe, and they have told us, has energized their resolve to fight in other places as well. And so in Indiana, Mitch Daniels, their governor, put on the table a right-to-work law, which we call right-to-work is a bad thing for us because the Republicans were very clever in how they name it. But basically, it says that if you are a part of a workplace, if you choose not to pay dues, then you don't have to pay dues. And which you understand how devastating that is for an organization to be able to have any kind of meaningful voice without the needed funds. And so their representatives also left the state. I don't know if you saw that. So they left the state, and Mitch Daniels, 4 days later, pulled back on it, okay? So that was a win, but there are other things that the bill went on to destroy, such as threats to the building trades with fair market standards and so forth. So this agenda is widespread in a planned attack, and you know, it's not over, definitely. In Ohio, they are organizing a referendum of sorts to repeal the bill that went through, and they call it SB 5. And so in November, they are going to have an election which they will open it up to the voters, and the voters will then have the ability to repeal that law. So it's a little bit confusing. But another bad thing that happened in Michigan, I don't know if you saw this, but it allows the governor to appoint a financial manager. Did you hear about this? Anybody hear about this? Well, this is just sort of the epitome of an end to democracy. Basically, if the governor, Rick Snyder, if he believes that a mayor in a town is not doing a good job, he can just simply say, okay, you're no longer in charge. I'm going to insert my self-appointed financial manager who can then break the contracts with any of the unions, can break contracts with anyone, can fire teachers, can lay off public workers, do whatever he wants. The only thing the mayor could do is something like, and don't quote me on this, but he could open the meeting and call for an adjournment of the meeting. Anything else, there is no power. And so this is the level to which some of these governors are willing to go to place their agenda, to push their agenda through, which is a payback to the corporate CEOs that put them into office in the first place. So we've got a huge fight on our hands. So, next.
Merci. Au micro 8.
Edith Dubé, conseillère FIC. Mrs. Bloomingdale, I'd like to find out, a previous guest earlier on this week has mentioned to us, I'm right here actually.
I'm sorry, where are you?
A little bit more left on the side.
Okay.
A previous guest earlier on this week has mentioned that you went back to basics as far as mobilizing your members for this organization. Could you please explain a little bit more in depth how you ended up being able to mobilize as many people as you did, and how you ended up going back to basics to regroup everybody?
Well, I think the mobilization, I mean, when we, the success has many owners, and so I believe that there's no, one person that was responsible for the kind of mobilization that you saw, but rather the combined effort of many people. But in general, I think that from the union side is that at the AFL-CIO, we started organizing early on. And we knew that Scott Walker and his Republicans were not going to be the type that could be lobbied or could be persuaded. And so instead of spending a lot of time in the halls of the Capitol trying to persuade or tweak, we spent our time in the field organizing our affiliates for a fight back. And also making sure that we were very, very very focused on making sure that there was a solidarity between the public and the private sector. Because we knew that that agenda was laid out early on. For months I was walking around with The Economist, copy of The Economist, who had on the cover, you know, in America, the fight is going to be between the public and private sector, and the ability to pull those two apart, because they believe that the private sector would turn their backs on the public sector, you know, sort of as payback of what happened in the 90s with you know, a lot of the jobs going overseas, and that was certainly a mistake. But I think that it was that preparation, but it was also that we were very strong in our message. This bill that Scott Walker wanted to implement, we talked about in very stark words. We said that it was about crushing the union movement, it was about crushing the middle class, it was about taking away our democracy and taking away fundamental human rights of workers, and that is the right to have a union. And so we were very clear in our message, and I do believe that that made a difference, so that it allowed people to understand the depth of this fight, and people responded. We did not sort of, you know, say, oh, we're in negotiations and we think that we'll be able to get them to you know, think differently. We just basically said they have declared war on us and it's our time to fight back. So, and people responded throughout Wisconsin and throughout the country and indeed the world. So, thank you.
Merci. Au micro 3.
Marie-Josée Forget, SPSE. Alors, je voulais vous dire que ça a été assez long avant qu'on entende parler de votre lutte ici au Québec. Moi, j'avais entendu parler que ça brassait au Wisconsin. Mon conjoint et moi, on cherchait sur Internet. Puis, je pense que ça a été 2 jours plus tard qu'ils en ont parlé à Radio-Canada. Je pense que ça faisait une dizaine de jours que vous aviez commencé. C'est sûr qu'avec la convergence et les médias de droite, même maintenant, vos poursuites judiciaires, on entend moins parler. Je pense que ce que ça confirme, c'est que les partis politiques qui profitent des crises économiques pour, de façon insidieuse, passer leur message tranquillement puis placer leurs pions. Puis je pense que ça confirme vraiment tout ce qu'on discute depuis le début du Congrès, l'importance de l'implication politique pour les syndicats. Et je trouve que d'autant plus, nous, au Canada, qu'on suit, nos dirigeants suivent de plus en plus les États-Unis. Alors, nos 2 pays qui se permettent d'aller donner des leçons de démocratie ailleurs. Alors, je pense qu'il faut rester très, très alerte. Et puis, merci beaucoup et puis bon courage dans votre lutte.
Oh, merci bien. I think that's very true. And when we talk about the exportation of bad ideas, of right-wing ideas, of union-busting ideas across the globe, unfortunately, the U.S. is, you know, #1 right now. And so that's why it's so important that we are in communication. One of the ways, again, that we can do it is through Facebook and the social media and through websites. I invite you all to, you know, if you're a Facebook person, to come to join us on our Facebook at wisconsinstateaflcio.org. We have up-to-date postings. That's Wisconsin State AFL-CIO. And we invite you to look at that. But yeah, I mean, look at, you know, I know that, you know, here in Canada, there have been some newspapers who have said that, here in Montreal, who have said that this is a good idea, what Scott Walker is doing. And we've seen the exportation of these ideas into Europe with these austerity measures, where, you know, when the country gets in trouble because they're, you know, part of the EU and they can't just go bankrupt, then they decide to basically take away pension rights, take away wages and benefits without negotiating at the table. And that's just plain wrong. And so there's this growing global assault on unions and the ability to sit down and collectively bargain at the table. And so, yes, that is what we have to be prepared for and understand the global implications of this. Thank you.
Merci. Au micro 6.
Lynn Tanguay de Rouen-Noranda. Thanks a lot for coming up north. Je vais continuer en français.
OK.
Pour répondre à ma collègue Joanne, mon opinion par rapport à pourquoi les Américains sont-ils tournés vers les républicains alors qu'ils étaient démocrates il y a quelques années, mon opinion personnelle est que M. Obama n'a pas eu le temps en quelques années, 2-3 ans, de rattraper tout le retard et tout le dommage que les républicains avaient fait pendant de si longues années. Et je vais juste dire à la délégation ainsi qu'à tous les résidents du Wisconsin, as President Obama said a few years ago, yes, we can.
Yes. Yes, we can. Awesome. Thank you. And it also, thank you so much for that. I think it also underscores the importance of us holding our elected officials accountable. And I think that we in the U.S. didn't do enough of that. And so in these times where we saw the economic collapse, we were not pushing for an agenda, to put America back to work, to put money into the infrastructure, and there was some of that, but we kind of, as a movement said, okay, well, this is happening, we'll have discussions, but we certainly didn't see the kind of, on the streets action that probably there needed to be at that time, and a real focus on economics, and instead we got all caught up in healthcare debate ad nauseum for, more than 2 years. So, yep.
Merci. Au micro 1.
Eric Martin, United Healthcare Professionals. Stephanie, how instrumental are the right-wing news media like Fox News in bringing the population to believe that they have to forfeit their basic rights? I'm asking this because I have watched Fox News in the past for a few minutes, and then I was going to have a heart attack because they're scary. It's terror, it's impending doom, and everything is going to break down. The whole society is coming to an end. And their Canadian version has just opened a few months ago, Sun News. It's not yet in French. We're still protected here. But they're spewing exactly the same rhetoric that we have to cut taxes for corporations and salvation is in big business. So I've been fortunate in the past. I've lived in the United States for 8 years, and I've enjoyed lower taxes than we're paying here. But on the other hand, I had to pay, like every 15 minutes I had to pay for something. So it's easier here because it's already paid. So yeah, I'm very concerned with the media that seems to be more and more bringing us that version of the fact. And I have to tell you, I'm so glad to hear you speaking like this, because the news that filters through here of the United States and of Americans is very, very right-wing. And when I lived there, that's not the kind of people that I've met. And you remind me of these down-to-earth, peace-loving and very people that stand in solidarity, like that I've rarely seen. Americans, the Americans I know are like that, and you remind me of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Merci. Merci. Yeah, we need to take our media back, don't we? And I think, you know, in the short term, it's really, you know, if you know how to use social media, take some time to show, you know, your friends, your parents, your kids can show you if you don't know how to do it, but it really is good because there's a lot of stories that are not being put out there that we just frankly need to do ourselves. And, you know, the more that we can organize with, you know, getting our own think tanks up and running, we're doing some of that in Wisconsin, putting out stories of the corruption of businesses. I mean, here in Wisconsin, we had a bank, M&I Bank, that made all kinds of risky real estate deals and broke the bank. They bankrupted the bank. And that was a locally owned bank that then was sold to, well, was sold to BMO. And so we found out that the leaders of this M&I Bank had been giving money to Scott Walker's campaign. Okay? So, you know, it's up to us to educate our members. We at the AFL-CIO took our money out of the bank. We had a big press conference on that, and we said that M&I Bank is unfit to hold the money of the working people of Wisconsin, and we will not be a part of that. But the guy that sold the bank out, guess what he got? He got a $24 million bonus payment after wrecking the bank. And that's just wrong, but yeah, we need to do more with our message, that's for sure.
Merci. Au micro 2.
Louise, ça va être en français. Louise Gilardeau, présidente SRPSQ. Ce qui se passe chez vous devient très préoccupant pour nous ici, parce qu'on sait ce qui est à la grande vogue aux États-Unis se ramène aussi chez nous. Cependant, ce que je voulais savoir, je sais qu'aux États-Unis, votre constitution, la constitution américaine, elle est sacrée. C'est votre Bible en fonctionnement et en droit, surtout en droit humain chez vous. Est-ce que ce qui se fait chez vous au Wisconsin présentement, est-ce que ça vient contre justement la constitution américaine? Est-ce que dans l'application de limiter vos droits d'adhérer à un syndicat, est-ce que ça ne vient pas encore là bafouer les droits que chaque Américain a et qui est écrit aussi dans la Constitution? Et je ne sais pas s'il y a d'autres matières ou quels sont aussi vos enlignements en contestation légale à ce niveau-là, mais j'aimerais ça vous entendre. Puis on est de tout cœur avec vous.
Solidarity, sister. It's not outlined explicitly in the U.S. Constitution, but certainly we have the right to assemble and the right to free speech. And so there's some work, legal work being done around that in a more constitutional you know, angle on this. But you know, the lawyers are investigating and working on this, but unfortunately it's not explicitly laid out. I know in Canada that it's more so with and somebody can explain this to me more with, what is it, the Fraser decision or something? But somebody can explain that to me more. But yeah, you would think, because really the foundations of democracies all around the world are founded on free trade unions. I mean, if you do not have free trade unions, you cannot have a functioning democracy. So.
Merci. Au micro 5.
Is it going? Susan Mullen, SPS, ICR, McGill. A few questions and comments. Number one, thank you very much. It's very reassuring to once again hear that down in the States, the union movement is re-energized again. And perhaps that's the silver lining that we can pull out of all this. Because I know one of the things that we constantly hear in Quebec and in Canada is that our rates of unionization are higher than the States, and if the States is the best country in the world, then obviously we don't need unions because you don't have a high union membership down there. And so it's reassuring to hear that you've been able to gather together what I saw as a weakening union movement and re-energize itself and take on what is perhaps the most hypocritical political party that exists in the world. They can come out and they accuse Haiti of illegal elections and fraud, and they can accuse Pakistan and every African country about how undemocratic they all are. But in the end, this is a party that is perhaps the most undemocratic, the most fraudulent, the one that can make anyone, the most meek and mild person, turn into a militant.
Well said, well said. And thank you. I agree with you that this is the silver lining in this, and this is a new beginning for our labor movement. This is a new beginning for people taking back their democracy, and I feel very inspired by it, and I feel very hopeful. And this is really a mark in time to rebuild our labor movement, because we have been on the decline, and now is our chance to rebuild, organizing one by one, rebuilding the labor movement, taking back our democracy, and really truly educating the members of our communities about what does it take to have a fair economy. And having a fair economy is not blaming those with less than us. It's about taking and making sure that the rich and the corporations are paying their fair share and readjusting to have a real balance in our economy, and turning off Fox News. So that's it. Okay.
Micro 3.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
On descend un petit peu. Est-ce que le changement politique à la Maison-Blanche avec le président Obama... Je suis trop fort?
Non, votre identification.
Gilles Neveu de l'hôpital Santa Caprini. Est-ce que le changement politique avec le président démocrate Obama, est-ce que ça l'a amélioré ou contribué à votre cause? Ou ça n'a absolument rien changé?
Could you say that again?
Est-ce que le changement politique avec la démocratie démocrate à la Maison-Blanche, est-ce que ça l'a amélioré votre cause? Est-ce que ça l'a appuyé votre cause plus que l'ancienne politique de la Maison-Blanche? Ou pas tellement?
Well, I think that, certainly we were all behind President Obama, very happy with the election of 2008, and that was a really important time. And, certainly Bush would have been, devastating at this time, because we wouldn't have, that's one of the reasons that they came after the unions at the state level, is because they can't get to these kind of agenda items at the federal level, because he will veto them. So we're very pleased about that. Again, this is our opportunity, to rebuild the labor movement. You know that in 1980, when Ronald Reagan decided he was going to fire an entire union with the PATCO, with the air traffic controllers, that was the beginning of the decline in the union movement in the United States. And unfortunately, we in the labor movement did not do enough to stop that. And that's easy to say, I guess, in hindsight, but we should have been marching in the streets. We should have been far more active than we were at that time, because it's been a steady decline ever since. And so now is the time to really turn that corner back and reestablish, you know, the right to have a voice in our union, in our workplace.
Merci. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres interventions? Madame Lavoie.
OK.
Alors, merci beaucoup, Mme Bloomingdale. Merci infiniment.
Merci.
Alors, vous nous avez vraiment fait la démonstration que c'est important, toute l'importance que les organisations syndicales appliquent des stratégies politiques pour contrer les tactiques de la droite.
Oh, no, I didn't hear you.
Voulez-vous que je recommence? Oui. Alors, je vous remercie infiniment. Je vous disais que vous nous avez fait la démonstration comment il est important pour les organisations syndicales d'appliquer des stratégies politiques pour contrer les tactiques de la droite. Alors, on voit bien comment on peut faire la différence. On peut faire la différence si on sort dans la rue, puis si on pointe du doigt, en exprimant notre colère, si on pointe du doigt les responsables. C'est également très important aussi de mobiliser la population. C'est ce que vous avez fait avec vos au-delà de 150 000 signatures. Mme Bloomingdale dit qu'elle a beaucoup à apprendre du Québec et de l'Afrique. Régine, elle, disait, il y a, en tout cas depuis le début du congrès, qu'elle veut que la lutte et la situation du Wisconsin deviennent un électrochoc pour les syndicats du Québec. Alors, comme je vous le disais au début, c'est important, ça démontre toute l'importance qu'on se parle entre nous, les organisations syndicales, et qu'on échange nos stratégies. Je vous disais aussi comment la solidarité est importante. Mme Bloomingdale a dit lorsque les syndiqués, les travailleurs du Canada sont allés supporter les travailleurs du Wisconsin, comment ça a fait une différence aussi. Et je vais terminer en vous disant que vous nous avez imités pour le camping. Alors, nous autres, on pourrait bien vous imiter avec nos cornettes puis nos gants de boxe pour réussir à faire passer notre message. Merci. En terminant, je veux juste vous faire remarquer qu'il y a des photos qui sont présentées. C'est des photos qui ont été prises par une déléguée de la FIC à l'ONU. Alors, il y a eu une manifestation, justement, en appui aux travailleurs du Wisconsin, et c'est ces photos-là qui sont projetées à l'écran. Merci.